We learned today where Rhett Lowder is going to be starting his professional baseball career. And if you live in Ohio, well, it's going to be pretty close to home.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Welcome into this bonus edition of the Locked On Reds podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Offenbaker. I am checking in with you today because I am a lifelong baseball fan, a lifelong Reds fan. I love baseball. I love the Reds. I've taken that love for baseball and for this team and turned it into information for you. On today's bonus show, we just learned where Rhett Lowder is going to be starting his professional baseball career, and that is going to be right here in Ohio, right up in Dayton. Single A, high A ball with the Dayton Dragons. Rhett Lowder will be making his professional debut. And to talk about it, we brought in the voice of the Dayton Dragons, Tom Nichols. All right, big news today as we learned where highly touted Reds pitching prospect Rhett Lowder is going to start the season. You can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, we are joined by the voice of the Dayton Dragons, Tom Nichols. So that means Rhett is going back to Dayton. And I say back to Dayton because technically, he was there last year, although we didn't get to see him pitch. For our listeners that don't know a lot or have forgotten about Rhett Lowder, he came out of highly touted Wake Forest last year, started 19 games for Wake Forest, going 15-0 with a 1.97 ERA. He was really, really good in 120 innings down there in college ball. Comes to Dayton, but doesn't pitch. Reds kept him shut down for the year. But you did get to spend some time talking with him and you were around him. So let's start with Rhett Lowder, the guy. Tell me a little bit about him, what you learned about him last year while he was there in Dayton.
Stephen, he was with us for a few weeks. We had a media event with him when he first came in, and then he traveled with the team for the last few weeks of our season, so that he basically, the whole idea was that he would learn the minor league life. He would learn the 5-day rotation, what a starting pitcher does between starts, just get a feel for the travel itself, bus rides, hotel stays, the day in the life. And even though he really didn't pick up a baseball, that was the benefit. So he comes in this spring. Of course, he was in big league camp with the Reds, so he's been in camp for a while. And he'll be with us. He'll anchor our starting rotation. And how long will we have him? We don't know that. A lot of speculation, I think, out there right now that this will be a fairly short stint with the Dragons for Rhett Lowder, and that may, in fact, be the case. But he will start the year with us. So that's something that Dragons fans can be very excited about here in Dayton.
Well, I've seen that speculation as well, that this could be very short-lived. Were you surprised at all that they're starting him there in high A rather than double A Chattanooga?
Well, yes and no. Going back to last season, and it really answered your original question, very intelligent guy. He's won all sorts of academic awards. In fact, he was the ACC Male Athlete of the Year, and I believe the Scholastic Athlete of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Well liked by his teammates, good personality, laid back kind of guy, kind of a down-to-earth type person. Handled our media very well the first day. Now, am I surprised? If you'd asked me that question maybe 6 weeks ago, I would have said not at all, because last year when he was with us, there was a lot of talk that he would start the 2024 season in Dayton. And then as spring training started to roll out, we started getting reports out of Arizona that he more likely would start in Chattanooga. And some of those were coming from some pretty credible sources. So I sort of shifted my expectations a little bit. But in the end, they decided the best thing was to give him a chance to start here, maybe to just ensure that he gets off to a good start. And you start, you take baby steps first for him, and then maybe you move him up to double A sometime during the first half of the year. So if you're in Dayton and you want to see him pitch, I would suggest seeing him quickly. He is a guy that's played in big games. He started a game against LSU in the College World Series last year and did very well. So he is not a stranger to big moments. However, of course, if you're familiar at all with Midwest League or high A baseball, you know that the level of play is high. There are many, many examples of players who have come out of top-level Division I conferences and struggled at this level. So it's not a guarantee that his first start is going to feature 5 or 6 shutout innings, but we look for good things from Lowder. And we're happy again. We're excited to have him start here.
What can you tell me and the listeners about what to expect when Rhett Lowder is on the mound? What type of pitcher is he? What will he bring to the table for the Dayton Dragons?
Well, we haven't seen him throw yet, of course, but we've read a lot of the same scouting reports as the fans, and that would be that it's a very polished pitcher, a guy who is already close to his floor. So he's not a guy that's coming in raw, needing a lot of time to improve and develop his secondary pitches like you see a lot of times. He is closer to being what he's going to be. The pitcher that I would compare him to a little bit, and I think the ceiling is hopefully higher, not to downplay the career that this guy had, but if you go back a few years, you'll remember Mike Leake. The reason I would compare the two is Mike Leake skipped the entire minor leagues. He came out of college as a #1 draft pick for the Reds and started his career, his pro career at the big league level. And that is something that Lowder is probably somewhat similar to, in that he's probably already closer to being what he's going to be than a typical single A pitcher. And he'll have things he can improve on, no doubt about that. And velocity wise, not a flamethrower, but certainly, I mean, there's a reason he went 7th overall in the draft. So we look for him on his opening day game, whether that's going to be Friday night, our opening day game, or later. That has not been announced publicly as we record this interview. So it wouldn't be a surprise to us, of course, if he were on the mound Friday night, which is our opening night game. If that's the case, we look forward to seeing that. It should be exciting for Dragons fans and for Reds fans everywhere.
I think that Mike Leake comparison is a very interesting one, because I know there's a lot of people within Reds country that they remember Mike Leake being a #4, #5 starter, perfectly fine, but, back end of the rotation kind of guy. And the truth is that Mike Leake was actually much better than a #4, #5 guy. The circumstances of the Reds rotation at the time put him as a #4, #5 guy. So I don't think that that's a bad comparison. I think that is from a guy like you that's seen a lot of pitching. I'll take that. If he's Mike Leake or better, that's a success. That's a guy that can come to the big league level and contribute when he does get there. I'm curious about how you would imagine the Reds handle him this year as far as restrictions on his arm. As I mentioned there up top, Tom, he threw 120 innings in college last year, and the Reds kept him shut down, which I thought was a great move. He had a lot of innings on his arm last year, but you would suspect that the Reds would be willing to let him get to that 120 or maybe a little bit farther this year. On the regular with single high A pitchers, what type of innings limits, pitch management systems do you guys employ there in Dayton to protect those arms as they're developing and learning to be professional pitchers?
That's a very good question, because the answer to your question is certainly different in the year 2024 than it might have been in, let's say, 2018, 2019, or going back even further than that. I've been broadcasting minor league baseball since 1988. I can remember a time, let's say in the early 90s in the Midwest League, where you would see a starting pitcher throw 140 pitches in a game. And if Rhett Lowder throws 140 pitches in his first start, when we come to the ballpark the next day, we'll have a new pitching coach, because the guy who let him throw 140 pitches will be an ex-pitching coach. That won't happen, of course. Brian Garber will be very good at implementing whatever plan he's been given through Derek Johnson. And I mean, Derek Johnson basically runs the pitching for the entire Reds organization. So they'll have a number in mind. I would expect early in the year, maybe, it could be somewhere in the 70 pitch range. And that might increase a little bit as we go through the season, maybe get up to maybe up to 90 by the end of the season. Innings wise, it's been a while really since we've seen single A starting pitchers go more than 5 innings in the first half of the season. So we have not seen guys go more than 5 innings in April, May, or June for quite a while. I think it was, let's see, maybe about 2017, 2018, we saw a starting pitcher, Tyler Mondile, throw a complete game in the second game of doubleheader. So he threw 7 innings. That's probably not going to happen in 2024. Yeah, they've got money invested in the players. They just are not as likely to allow that. Even if, you look at the way, for example, Chase Petty was handled last year, who was a high school number 1 pick by Minnesota, acquired by the Reds for Sonny Gray, and a guy who in high school had been a 100-mile-an-hour guy. And he wasn't throwing that hard for us last year, but he was maximum 4 innings. And it didn't matter if he got through 4 innings with 40 pitches. It was still going to be maximum 4 innings. That's really being careful with a pitcher when he's out of the game after 40 pitches. But that was the way they decided to go with him. And again, that is a decision that is made at the top. So that is a decision that is going to be made by Derek Johnson, the Reds Major League pitching coach, maybe in consultation with some others. But that is going to be made much higher than the coaching staff in Dayton, so that the coaches here, specifically the manager, Vince Harrison, the pitching coach, Brian Garman, they're going to implement the plan that is given to them related to Rhett Lowder and the other starters.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. I love testing my skills on Prize Picks this season. It's one of the most exciting ways to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn that $10 into $1,000 using the NBA, the NHL, college basketball, a few games left there, or Major League Baseball. You can also put together some Prize Picks with MLB stats for stolen bases, home runs, RBIs, strikeouts. The list goes on and on. Just download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. Again, just download the app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Whether you're at the ballpark or on the couch, get into all the action on the diamond with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Keeping an eye on a pitching matchup, looking for that home dog, FanDuel has all the ways for you to play this season. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets back if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on the run lines, on money lines, over unders, so many ways to play. You can even combine prop bets on things like strikeouts and home runs to increase your payout. Get in on all the action. Just head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and you can bet on baseball all season long.
I think you're going to see a little bit of a twist with our starting rotation this year. And you might see certain guys in roles where they are throwing let's say every 6 days, once a week. And you may see other guys in the starting rotation where they'll pitch as a starter 1 week in that 6-day rotation. We play 6 games a week. Monday's no game. So 6 games a week, Tuesday through Sunday. And you may see guys throw as a starter 1 week, and then the next week is a tandem reliever where they alternate with another pitcher. And 1 week, one guy starts and the other guy follows him, and the next week, vice versa, the opposite, other way around. So you may see that with some guys. I don't think you'll see it with Lowder. I'd be surprised if he follows somebody. He'll be a starter every week when he starts. But into the season, they've got some options there, Stephen, because he did throw 120 innings last year. So if you wanted to try to build on that, you could do that. You could get him up to 120, 130 innings. I'd be a little surprised if that number increases. But the good news is it's already a solid number to build on. I mean, I think Andrew Abbott in the big leagues last year, if you combine what he threw in the minors and the majors last year, it was a way higher than he had thrown at any point. And they don't like to increase that number by too many innings from one year to the next. But Lowder's already at 120. So they're in good shape there in terms of his future. And we'll see what he's allowed to go this season. I'd be surprised if he finishes the year in Dayton. I'd be very surprised by that. He might finish in Cincinnati.
Right. I know one thing for sure. We're excited. It is Rhett Lowder time. We're going to get to check him out in Dayton. For those that can't get to Dayton to watch a start, Tom, tell people how they can at least listen in to have you call the action.
Friday night will be on television locally on the Dayton CW. The radio games are available all season, home and road, on our flagship home, WONE. You can get us on the Dragons app. You can get us at DaytonDragons.com. And of course, there are several also video streaming options available through Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball to check out as well. Those are subscription packages. So we invite the fans to be with us on Friday night. Now, again, Reds have not announced the rotation yet, but it wouldn't be a surprise to us if Lowder was the opening night starter on Friday. Keep in mind, you can check out our social media, and we should have something on that tomorrow probably.
Excellent. All right. He's Tom Nichols. He is the voice of the Dragons. Tom, thanks so much for taking some time. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
That was a great talk with Tom Nichols. Thanks so much to Tom for taking a few minutes to jump on. That all happened last minute when the Reds released where Rhett Lowder was going to be starting. It sounds like Rhett Lowder will probably be Dayton's opening day starter on Friday. So make sure if you have the opportunity to get up to Dayton and check that out, that you do. I have a feeling that Rhett Lowder is not going to disappoint. That's going to do it for this bonus edition of Locked On Reds. We'll be back in your podcasting feed in the morning with our regularly scheduled episode where we're hopefully talking about the Reds pulling off a series win out in Philadelphia. Oh man, that will be sweet. Until next time, make sure you are subscribed because we will be here keeping you locked on Reds every single day.